Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Emilio Ramirez. I am Housing Director for the City of Oxnard. We are before you to consider the Annual Consolidated Performance and Evaluation Report, or the CAPER, that is due to HUD reporting activity regarding grant funds funded from HUD. Normally, this report is due by the end of September of each year, but this year it is late, as you can tell. We have communicated this to HUD and they have agreed to accept it after your approval. Annually, the city receives three entitlement grants: the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Investment Partnerships Act Grant, and the Emergency Solutions Grant, or better known as CDBG Home and ESG. The city is required to submit a CAPER providing the year-end accomplishments based on the Regional Consolidated Plan and a 5-year plan laying out the gaps and needs of the region and in subsequent annual action plans that establish the activities to support that regional plan. The CAPER was made available to the public on a 15-day review period beginning October 14 and ending November 2, published in the Vida newspaper on October 14 in both English and in Spanish. Due to the impacts of COVID, the city also received over $6 million of COVID CARES Act funding, and an amendment to the 2020 annual action plan outlined how the city plans to allocate those COVID-related CDBG and ESG funds. On October 6, 2020, the City Council approved the First Amendment of the 2020 Annual Action Plan for the CARES Act. This included CARES Act funding from HUD of just over $3 million for CDBG and just over $5.2 million for ESG. The CARES Act makes available CDBG COVID responsive funding and ESG COVID responsive funding prepared for COVID-19 pandemic impacts. Fiscal year accomplishments include the following activities: first, code compliance by a significant amount. Homebuyer program served 6 new homeowners. Public infrastructure and facilities served 127,000 residents. Public services served just under 10,000 households, and the homebuyer program were not able to close any programs in that year. Public services served 194 households, rapid rehousing 19 households, overnight shelter assisted 65 in that program service. Street outreach provided 89 service to 89 persons. The CARES Act program resulted in accomplishing the following activities. First, to the Homer Center at Durley Park Youth Center, we served 50 people. In South Oxnard Youth Center, 53. In the Colonial Gym, 66. Total of 169 served by that program. 61% of the ESG funds were expended in the year end. No home funds were expended during the fiscal year, although we are working on various projects to commit them to. Obviously, they're dependent on development progress. 50% of the CDBG funds were expended through the various projects. 24% of the CDBG funds went to eligible projects and will continue throughout the next 5 years. 24% of the ESG funds went to eligible projects and will continue throughout the remaining of the 5-year period. ESG funds. As you can see on screen, we received an allocation of $221,000, and we expended a total of $208,000. So combined with prior year balances as of June 30, we had a balance of $133,000. This table shows the breakdown of the activities that were funded with ESG funding for the total of $208,000, as I just mentioned. Went to Turning Point, Kingdom Center, Mercy House, Salvation Army for a myriad of homeless services. The balance of the home funds is approximately $3.2 million. Will carry over to new fiscal year. As I mentioned, we are in process of considering various home-funded affordable housing developments. $81,000 was expended for staff administration, and $175,000 were expended for the home buyer and rehabilitation programs. Unexpended CDBG funds in the amount of $2.4 million will carry over to the new fiscal year for future funded projects. The main projects that utilized the CDBG funds in 2020 program year were administrative costs, public services, and internal city programs for low-income residents. CARES Act unexpended funds will continue into the next fiscal year for services related to the coronavirus pandemic. Currently, we have approximately 2.3 million that will be carried over into the new year. The primary projects that received CDBG COVID funding were emergency services, rental assistance, food share, youth programs, and homeless services. A small portion was provided to a business assistance grant. As stated before, the CARES Act funds were available over the use of the several years. At the end of the fiscal year, the city had an approximate balance of $4 million that will be used in 2022 and 2023. The specific uses of the expended funds include administrative costs, emergency shelter operations, citywide outreach to unsheltered persons with Mercy House and Salvation Army. So staff recommends that the City Council conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed CAPER and review and file that CAPER once we submit to HUD. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.